Welcome everyone. I'm here with another astrology video. My name is Erik Roth, shamanic astrologer, and this is another episode of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. And I'll be taking you through a particular upcoming cycle that Mars is going to be going through here, and just kind of capping off of what just happened with Mars as it aligned with Uranus and the North Node at the beginning of August 2022 and the end of July. This one will be of a little bit different nature, as it is going into the sign of Gemini. I'll be talking about what all of that means and what some of the major features and highlights of this transit. Just an update on me, my schedule upcoming. I'm doing a couple of big things coming up in September. One is I'm starting a new webinar series with Kaylin Castell with My Star Alchemy, and it's on the stars of the zodiacal constellations. So you won't want to miss that if you're really wanting to learn about the stars and how to even do a little bit of navigating of the night sky. This is a particular great interest to you, and learning about what the stars mean in astrology, and in particular in the from the perspective of the zodiacal constellations, which are the ones that the sun and the planets primarily move through, including the moon and the asteroids and so forth, go through those particular constellations. And then around the equinox between September 21 and the 25th, I will be in person in Bisbee, Arizona, facilitating the Cosmology and Night Sky event and workshop. And there'll be a lot of night sky sharing in the dark skies of Arizona, southern Arizona. Just a really beautiful landscape, and hosted by the Journey of the Ages Mystery School, formerly known as Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. And so there'll be others there, including a special presentation by Daniel Giammario, and Kaylin Castell will also be there for a short time, making a guest appearance there. So if you're interested in learning more about the night sky and the stars that are involved in that, check out journeyoftheages.com and check out their classes. That's sign up for my newsletter at inspiralnexus.com. You can learn more about that there as well. So happy to share more as we come up further into the end of this summer. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and start this episode. All right, so Mars in Gemini is the main topic of this particular episode 38 of Signs, Planets, and Stellar Rhythms. Mars will be spending 7 months in the sign of Gemini. And this is going to be quite a feature. And every 2 years, Mars is in the sky. It looks like it's slowing down, and then stations retrograde and spends a lot of time in one area of the sky. This is due to Earth in orbit catching up with Mars. So it says it because it orbits between Mars and the sun, so it moves a bit faster in that regard, meaning it catches up with Mars about every 2 years. And when it does that, it looks like Mars in the sky is slowing down, and then it spends a lot of time in one sign or sometimes two signs, like it did back in 2016, 2017, and 2018 as well. So this is a really big deal when it happens, because then Mars can activate a lot of things that are in whatever sign it might be in, especially with us, each individual personally, if we have any particular personal points or planets astrologically in the signs of Gemini or Sagittarius or Virgo or Pisces. That means there's a great likelihood that there'll be 3 conjunctions, squares, and or oppositions with this Mars. So it acts as an outer planet in that way during this phase of the Mars cycle, Mars transit. So what are the main highlights of this particular episode? Well, we're talking about the Mars and Gemini journey, how it starts an entirely new synodic cycle as it's ending one that has been going on for close to 2 years. And then later in the fall and then the winter, fall of 2022 and winter of 2023 here in the Northern Hemisphere, that is squaring Neptune 3 times with Neptune and Pisces. There's a little feature I'm sharing about Mars in the US natal chart, since the natal position of Mars and the US chart is Gemini. And then there's an occultation of Mars at the opposition point with the sun. So that's a feature that's at the end of this episode. So if you're wanting to know the full deal of what's going on with Mars and Gemini, I've got it through December. They'll probably be making another part to this as Mars goes direct later in early next year, and then goes through the rest of the sign of Gemini and eventually ends in March of 2023. All right, so what is Gemini? What does that mean? Well, this is Mars's passage through here is an incubation of a particular archetypal expression of the masculine, since Mars represents the masculine principle, not the quote biological masculine, but it has an expression on the archetypal level that is was similar just by itself, similar to Aries in that way, has a resonance with it, but it's not in totality the sign of Aries, meaning Mars represents that. But so Mars brings that energy into every sign it moves into. And so when it spends a lot of time in one sign, like it's doing in the last 4 months of 2022 and first 3 months of 2023, it brings the combination of that, the Mars energy with whatever sign that is, in this case, Gemini. So Gemini is a sign, but in shamanic astrology, it's looked at as an archetype. So Gemini's essence is contrarian. It's a shifter of roles and shapes and colors and expressions in the world. It's an air sign that can be considered a free electron or out of bounds from the regular rules or laws that apply to other archetypes, meaning it's kind of free to express itself in any way that it wants and tends to get away with it a lot of the times. And then there's a lot of names that are associated with this. I don't have all of them listed here, including Hayoka, not listed on this, but Kokopelli, the flute player in Native American mythology, the sacred clown as well, Coyote, the trickster, the thief, the messenger, the rider. And I say rider only because it's like connected into that messenger communicator energy. The bard and minstrel, you could even say the divine or the crazy wisdom musician or the musician in general, the fool, and any, like, there's another word, another term that in shamanic astrology is the divine comedian, sort of the one that goes up and tells the truth through storytelling, through poetry, through comedy, stand-up comedy, or films or shows or plays. It's sharing that through the story and putting a spin on it that makes us laugh, right? And gives us perspective at the same time. There's kernels of wisdom that come through there. Gemini is also strongly infused with the mind. Gemini has this great desire to know it all, but can get lost in the mind, and it's near infinite capacity for knowledge. So it's like the joke for Gemini is it wants to know it all, but it simply can't know it all. Gemini can show us through wild and contrarian wisdom our own foibles and help us laugh at our own mistakes and see from a perspective we wouldn't receive from any other place. So basically being able to laugh at ourselves, to see ourselves in ways like that we couldn't see necessarily with maybe our own particular limits or fixations or attachments. And Gemini can kind of go outside of that zone and show us what it really means through its storytelling and its jokes and so forth, and playing different roles. All right, so Mars in Gemini is from August 20th until March 25th. So August 20th, 2022 to March 25 of 2023. So Mars is going to spend 7 months in the sign of Gemini. And the last time that Mars spent in an inordinate amount of time in one sign was in the 2020-2021 period, between the end of June of 2020 and the first week of January of 2021, when it spent 6.5 months in the sign of Aries. And then, so during this transit of Gemini, Mars will have 3 squares with the planet Neptune and enter into a new cycle on December 7th. This is when Mars and the Sun reach opposition. What is known in astronomy as acronychal rise, meaning that Mars is rising in the east as the Sun is setting in the west. And you could apply that to other planets, and even the full moon can be looked at as doing that every single month. Now, there's a whole other area of the Mars cycle that is taught at the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School, or what is now the Turning the Ages Mystery School, that has to do with the entire Mars Synodic Cycle. And actually, Daniel Giumario, who founded Shamanic Astrology, he and I are actually going to be doing a class together on August 22nd. And you can find out more information at theturningtheages.com. And this particular class will be focused on the Synodic Cycle. So I'm only going to refer to it here and there because it's an entirely, like we could talk for another hour or two just about that particular cycle. So I'm going to reference it a little bit here and there, but just to know that at every Sun-Mars opposition starts a new Synodic cycle in this particular Shamanic Astrology system. So the cycle usually runs from around 25 to 26 months in length. And the last one began October 13th, 2020, and goes on until December 7th of 2022. And this next one is going to go on all the way from December 7th, 2022 until January 15th, 2025. But Gemini starts the process. It starts the tone or the storyline of the entire cycle. And that's why it's so important, because it brings that whole 26-month period into a certain framework that we can look at as that setting of ignition of the cycle. So what does it look like, Mars in the sky on August 20th when it starts the cycle? Well, it's right here. This is this line, this orangish line that I've got here, shows the border of the seasonal energy, not the constellations, the seasonal energy of the sign between Taurus and Gemini. You can see Mars crossing over here. It's kind of an exaggerated look, symbolically showing where Mars is. And right on that border is also Pleiades. The energy of Pleiades is right here, and meaning that it brings in, as it enters that, it'll be connecting into that star, or that cluster of stars right there, including the led by Alcyone and the 7 sisters of Pleiades. You can see Uranus not far from here. And then there's some other stars like Aldebaran and Menkaure. But it's the Bull constellation that it enters into when it enters into the sign of Gemini. So when, at late August 2022, you have to stay up well past midnight to see Mars rising. And it won't be until closer to late September into October where you'll be able to, won't have to stay up that late to see Mars coming up, because it'll start to get more towards the boundary of early morning and late evening. So you get into that zone at that point. A new rhythm of Mars. So I mentioned, this is just a recap of some of what I've shared before. And in the Shamanic Astrology system, it's now being called an overstory as opposed to an overtone, meaning like the story is the most important part, the archetypal story and the journey of Mars. So this one becomes about Gemini. So this is coming into like the pre-echo, the pre-phase of the actual cycle that starts on December 7th. Okay, so what are some of the major things here? We can see August 20th, Mars entered Gemini, or will enter Gemini on August 20th, 2022. And then on August 26th, we have the Sun squaring Mars, as the Sun is in Virgo. And so there's what we call a quadrature in astronomy. And as it's doing that, that's when we can tell that when it starts to really get into the area of like late night, early morning, like that, started getting to that boundary. It conjuncts the moon on September 16th and squares Neptune for the first of 3 times on October 11th. And then stations retrograde here 2 weeks after conjuncting the moon again between the horns of the bull on October 30th. And I'm going to show you some other night sky images around that. And then for the second time, November 19th, it squares Neptune and then gets the full opposition to the sun. This is also a point where it's a full moon and there's an occultation of the Mars by the moon on that day, which I have a slide for just specifically about. And then Mars gets brighter and brighter. As it's doing this, Earth is getting closer and closer to Mars, and Mars is getting brighter and brighter, and it reaches at a minus 1.9 at its peak in late November and first week of December of 2022. And that's not the brightest that Mars can reach. In other past cycles, it can get up at a minus 2.8. In fact, there have been times in its history where Mars can reach a minus 3-ish, like just really, really edging on that zone. So again, some of the rhythms and the orbital patterns of Mars can take tens of thousands of years, and it can actually, along with the relationship with Earth, can actually reach that point where Mars gets a bit closer. Just another bit closer where it gets really super bright. But it was at its brightest back in 2003 when it reached its closest point with the Earth the first time in close to 60,000 years. So that's when it reached a minus 2.8-ish range, close to minus 2.9. So that was really, really super bright. All right, so what else can we say about this? Well, this is just a brief preview. If you want to know more about the full Mars Synodic Cycle, I suggest you check out the turningofages.com and the Mars class that Daniel and I will be getting into. We've done other webinar series around the Mars cycle, and there's an entire course about synodic cycles, which Mars is included in at that school. So we call this in Germanic astrology the gestation incubation phase. It's the sort of the gestation of the actual archetypal energy of Gemini, and it begins usually about a 3-month period. So in this case, it's a little over 3 months, close to 4 months, maybe 3.5 roughly, and it has certain conjunctions with the moon, and creates a kind of a unique pattern there. And each phase of Mars, phase 0 meaning like conception phase, incubation phase, gestation phase, it creates its own unique pattern, especially related to the particular sign or archetype that is coming around. But again, this is just a little snippet of information that one can learn about the Mars Synodic Cycle. When was Mars last in Gemini for a prolonged period of time? This was in 1975 and 76. And that time, Mars was in Gemini from August 14th, 1975 to March 18th, 1976. So, but it was a little more, it was different in that Mars spent 39 days in the sign of Cancer during that time. So it wasn't fully in the sign of Gemini during that time. But at the 47-year mark and the 79-year mark, we can see that Mars can come really, really close to where it was before. And you can correlate the pattern if you go back 47 years prior, 79 years, or go ahead in the future, 47 or 79. you can really get close to the exact position of where Mars was at that point. There's also other markers in the Mars cycle, like 15 years and sometimes 17 years, 32 as well. So these are other numbers, again, that we learn in the at the Synodic Cycle online course, what was formerly at the Shamanic Astrology Mystery School. All right, so this is a feature of here being in the U.S., living in the U.S. my whole life. I'm always certainly looking at and connecting to what's happening with the U.S. chart. And there's things I've talked about with the U.S. natal chart in the past, like the Pluto return of the U.S. You can go to my video regarding that on my YouTube channel. And there's also at this time happening a Neptune opposition. You can see Neptune currently here. Here's the U.S. natal Neptune. And here's the transiting Pluto with the U.S. natal Pluto position here. But today, we're focusing on this Mars conjunct Mars. And this will happen 3 times. October 4th, 2022, November 23rd, 2022, and March 6th, 2023. So this is really activating the Gemini archetypal energy. And Mars, again, representing the masculine expression of, in this case, the US. So this would mean more of a greater emphasis and actional energy around the mind, around knowledge, around sort of this eternal youth expression of itself, and perhaps a reminder of how, like, we are not as a country as we haven't fully grown up yet. We haven't fully expressed ourselves and matured in a way that is fully coming into our own. And this is Mars coming into a space and reminding us of that and allowing us to see ourselves in that way, and maybe coming into a space where we can work with the contrarian energies that are here, not just obviously certainly in political view, but also in just in life. There's and our focus on the entertainment, the all the things that go in that kind of allow us to escape dealing with the complexities of reality. Gemini is just simply wanting to utilize its imagination, fun, and kind of go out of bounds. Well, this could be a way for us to kind of connect into that space on a more healthy level, or at least I feel like that's an intent there. And I'm hopeful that during this transit, we might be able to have a greater awareness of that part of ourselves as a community here on this continent, and maybe even going beyond that. Meanwhile, the U.S. is experiencing a death rebirth and a sense of losing itself in the direction it's going. So Mars is not here to solve anything, to get us to, we have to commit to something, but it's showing us a piece of ourselves as we're going through this process. So this is kind of it might even give us a little bit of a preview of in about 3 or 4 years, actually I think 2027, so more like 5 years, when the U.S. has a Uranus return, when Uranus comes back to the zone. So it's going to be going over the transiting Mars will be connecting on not just the U.S. natal Mars, but the descendant as well as the Uranus position here. So this could also create some unexpected, unpredictable kinds of experiences that we have with Gemini, and kind of giving us a preview of what Uranus will be doing when it reaches the full return point that hasn't happened in 83 to 84 years. So we'll see what may come during that time. Maybe even I certainly will be bringing this up in the Mars and Gemini class, which even if you don't turn in live to that one, that may be an important class to rewatch or watch during the September through March period. September 2022 to through March of 2023, and giving everybody kind of a greater understanding of what this Mars expression in Gemini is and the entire cycle. So Mars squaring Neptune 3 times. So Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces since 2011, and that will continue until about 2025. Mars squares Neptune nearly every year, waxing and waning squares, but it is rare for Mars to square any other planet 3 times in the same sign within a 6-month period of time. So Mars will spend an unusual amount of time with Neptune in the 2022-2023 square. The last time this took place was in 2005 and 06, when Mars was in the sign of Taurus and Neptune in Aquarius. So obviously different signs that. But the last time Mars had any kind of hard aspect with Neptune while it was in the sign of Gemini, and it did that 3 times, was way back in 1817 to 1818, when Mars had 3 oppositions with Neptune and Sagittarius. So Neptune wasn't in Pisces. You'd have to go back much, much, much further to find out that many centuries, when the last time you go back to Mars having the Synodic Cycle in Gemini and Neptune being the sign of Pisces. So this is a pretty rare expression here. So what does it mean? Well, the square pattern may create a sharp confusion in our senses of reality and our relationship to the masculine. Spirituality can also be called into question, especially if we are experiencing a personal astrological cycle with Mars and Neptune. The mind itself is expanded beyond the tethers of the middle world, form and structure, which may result in being lost in ideas and roles we want to be. So meaning like we have expectations, we have attachments to what we want and our goals, and this whole relationship between Mars and Neptune may feel like it's distorting it, or it may dissolve it, or it may think, oh yeah, it's going really, really well, and then ends up, the reality gets shown to us in some very strong fashion, almost like a very deep impact, and then we see that stark reality, and then we realize we were simply dreaming into what we wanted, but yet it wasn't meant to go into reality, at least not at this time. It could also result in an identity crisis. At the same time, it opens up the mind to the heart and the spirit to all being one at the same and same in the celestial realm. So this applies also to the new U.S. natal chart as much as it applies to us individually, especially for those going through personal cycles around Neptune and or Mars. So, I mean, me personally, I am also experiencing a Neptune cycle, and I will be having Mars opposite my Sagittarius planets, going through them 3 times, in particular my natal Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury with Neptune. So there is a sense of that process, and this isn't there to just create confusion and illusion just for the heck of it. It's actually there to show us a piece of ourselves so that we may grow, we may see ourselves in ways, and maybe have even a deeper relationship with spirit, and being able to also let go of things that no longer apply to what we want. Maybe we're transitory in a particular way that helps us grow as individuals, so that we can reach for something else that is more significant and more solid in the long-term future. So Mars and Neptune may be able to help us with that, but also connecting into our own imagination, our own sense of where our limits are, maybe even going beyond our limits to see, wait a minute, we are limiting ourselves too much, and Gemini is showing us that we can go beyond it, and that we've give ourselves permission to do that, with Neptune being kind of this boundless energy in a kind of representing the infinite cosmos and celestial realm. So Mars will station retrograde October 30th. Roughly every 2 years this happens. So I may make a separate video specifically about the Mars retrograde pattern. as it goes through that. But we can see it right here. When the Mars entered Gemini, it was right here where Pleiades was, or Pleiades is, located in the Bull constellation. But where it stations retrograde, it goes all the way along this line here, which is the ecliptic, the path of the sun in the sky, at 2536 Gemini. And that it's going to sit at that point for like near that point for a couple of weeks, meaning it just doesn't move very much in at the end of October and the beginning of November. So it's pretty strong and impactful, potent time right there. And then here's the horns of the bull, Elnath and Tianguan right here. And there's Aldebaran, the eye of the bull. So these are the horns coming up, and it sits in that place. And this is a really powerful point. In fact, in ancient Egypt, there's a lot of imagery of deities, gods and goddesses that had the sun or the moon between the horns, or kind of wearing it on kind of a headdress. And it's representative of that energy that has definitely its connection to the solar and to some degree sometimes lunar energy out there. But sometimes if you get a planet out there, then activates that profound point there. And this is very, very close to the galactic edge, where souls come in, the silver gate, to being born here on the planet. And this is the sort of this line going diagonally here. That's the line of the galactic sort of edge or extreme here, the Milky Way. And then this line coming across here, horizontally here, that's the ecliptic. And then this line that's going across here, up and down, that's has a little bit of a highlight. This is the boundary between Gemini and Cancer, because the galactic edge is always 0 degrees Cancer, meaning it represents the June solstice point. So that's where Mars would be only 4.5 degrees from that point. So this is really a powerful point. And again, I probably put some additional attention on it at in October when I talk about it as a separate video. So the Mars retrograde loop, again, we'll put some additional focus on this later, but here's Mars where it will be in September. It carries on this way from right to left and stops here, October 30th, 2022. It goes backwards above the ecliptic and gets to its station direct point on January 12th, 2023, right where this early part of September is, right here around sort of the last, well, actually, that's kind of the last couple of days of August 2022 and the first couple of days of September of 2022. And then that's where it stations direct. So then it changes direction again. So then this is when Earth is now passing Mars in its orbit around this point. And so Mars will start to slowly come direct. And here's the opposition point. This is where it was retrograde again, and then it hits it again. So it hit it here when it was first going direct before the retrograde, and then it hits the retrograde and it hits it direct here on December 7th. And that's the second time it hits is where that opposition point is. And then by April of 2023, it's over in the Twins constellation, way past the sign of Gemini. So here in the sign of Cancer. And there is a Mars acronychal rise, or the Mars-Sun opposition point at the full moon. This is, again, December 7th of 2022. And you can see here, this is at 1605, and the actual exact full moon is 1607. And this is when with the Mars opposition. So it's right, like Mars is literally timed just about almost precisely at the full moon on December 7th, the full moon there in Gemini, where the moon is going to be really high in the sky with Mars, and Mars will be occulted by the moon. So this is what you'll see in the sky you'll see these prominent stars, Algol here in Perseus, Alcyone in the Pleiades and the Bull, Aldebaran, Menkaure, Capella, all coming up over the east-northeast horizon. And that's what we'll be looking at. And what is this? What does it mean? So this occultation at 1607, that should be Gemini, actually, not Aries. That was the last one of the other occultations happened in Aries not long ago. But every month, the moon has a conjunction with Mars. But in 2022, there's 3 times where there's an occultation, where it fully occults Mars, obscuring the red planet completely for several minutes or more. And the occultation is like an eclipse, except that it doesn't actually cast a shadow on the Earth. So meaning like there's no actual shadow of Mars being occulted there. In an occultation of the sun, that's why it's called an eclipse, is because obviously it creates a shadow on the planet Earth here. In June, the occultation, well, this would be in December here. This occultation is visible to people in northern and western portion of the US, Canada, Greenland, and Western Europe. You can see on this map here from Guy Otwell's 2022 astronomical calendar, and he shows where the visible occultation will be. So for the people living and or visiting in this area, which is typically that time of year in early December, is pretty cloudy and wet, I will just share. But sometimes you might get some breaks in there where you get to see the full moon. So, but people that are living in Europe will see it in the early morning sky of December 8th. But in North America, it's late at night in the on December 7th. So an occultation astrologically just puts some additional emphasis on this and the importance of this Gemini cycle. The Gemini archetype will be especially potent due to it being a full moon and at the acronychal rise of Mars. So we can see that this is really of vital importance here astrologically. And for those that are having, cycles around Mars and Neptune and, having any personal points there, such as their lunar nodes or their sun or their moon or even their natal Mars position, this could be really profoundly important for them, for each person, whether it's in a conjunction. Like this will be almost exactly, it's only 2 degrees from exact opposition to my own natal Jupiter. So I'll definitely be on a personal level very interested, but I'll also be very interested in learning like how it impacts other people out there. For me, doing readings for clients and others, and just sort of a mundane impact around the world. What is coming up? What is being stirred up by all of this Martian and lunar energy here, and being at the very beginning of a new cycle. So this is really, really important time. All right, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy this video, to like and subscribe to this. I have a newsletter too. I encourage you to go to inspiralnexus.com to get further updates about my travels and posts about videos and articles. I send out a lot of free information too. So those who just want to follow me and check that out, that's please do so. I love doing this, my passion. And you can find out more information also at mystaralchemy.com. I'm doing a new webinar series with Kaylin Castell on the zodiac magic and mysteries of the zodiacal constellations. And then you can also find, actually, that's what used to be shamanicastrology.com is now just recently in July, turningtheages.com. But if you go type that in, it'll redirect you to that. So I still have that listed as a holdover there, but I'm slowly updating everything to the Turning of the Ages. But you can check out the Mars and Gemini class at turningtheages.com. And if you're wanting readings or wanting to know more about my classes and other events, including doing astrocartography readings, synastry readings, chart couple readings, and where I'm going to be at holistic fairs along the West Coast. I'm based in Medford, Oregon, so I go to California and Oregon a lot, and of course Arizona on occasion, which I'll be doing at the end of September for that night sky event. That's my email, my spiralnexus@gmail.com. Thank you all. Again, like and subscribe if you do. And I look forward to any comments or thoughts or any ideas about future videos. Feel free to share them with me. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care, everyone.